Wondered if you could talk more about the Draconians and the children that are missing. I know you have information, and I'm hoping you'll share it with us today.
This is the one subject I don't like to talk about. The Draconians. Okay, the Draconians are a very large reptilian race. They're known as the Dracs. There is a royal line of the Draconian reptilian race, and they're called the Seeker. They range anywhere from 14, 15 to 22 feet tall. They can weigh up to 1,800 pounds. They do have winged appendages, and they are awesome, awesome beings. They're extremely clairvoyant, they're extremely clever, and they can also be extremely sinister. They apparently were brought to our time and space, our universe, in full physicality. Somebody brought them here and dumped them here. I don't know, and the Andromedans still don't know. But they were brought here in physicality, and they were taken to Alpha Draconis and stars nearby because it gave them the greatest chance of survival. So they were kicked out of some other place. Anyway, they are definitely a major factor to be reckoned with. They, for the most part, are service to self. They do not care for the human race because when they were dumped here, they were told that this was theirs to command. So whoever did this really screwed up. And they still have this mindset. They were one of the first to chart our solar system. In fact, they were the first of the ET races to actually put their flag on it and say it's theirs. Apparently, some of them still have the attitude that everything on it, in it, still belongs to them. And I understand that some of them have been coming back, and more will be coming back. It's going to get real interesting, folks. I can't begin to tell you how interesting it's going to get. They apparently they have had space travel for 3 billion years. They are a remarkable race. They really are. But they have an attitude. And a lot of human races in our galaxy and outside our galaxy have had problems with them. And you know, I don't want to say that all of them are like that, but that's really all that I've heard from the Andromedans. They've had major problems, as all the other races have. They are definitely reptilian. They look like velociraptors, except they're like 22 feet. And they're smart, they're intelligent, they can build. They're just very, very different from us. They apparently attacked Lyra, or came across human colonies in Lyra. Now, the human race was not created in Lyra. Okay? It was brought there to survive. And again, from what the Andromedans have told me, for some reason, once they go back approximately 427 million years, they just don't know what else is there. For some reason, there's no history beyond that, even though the physicality is there. So I don't know if it's being blocked from a higher level or what. They don't even know. The Draconians were flying through there. They came across these human colonies who were agricultural in nature. Basically, because of their talents of horticulture and plant science, they were literally making the planets greater and better. Little gardens. When the Draconians flew by and they saw this incredible wealth of food, they basically wanted to control it. And apparently there was a misunderstanding between the lion races then, who were human, and the reptilian race, because the Lyrians wanted to know more about the Draconians and the reptilian race before they gave them what they wanted. And apparently the Draconians misunderstood it and literally went back and then attacked the planets and killed a lot of people. Blew up 3 planets. And the Lyrians were literally forced to migrate and scatter into different parts of our galaxy. So it did, in a way, facilitate colonization. And I wrestle with whether the Draconians were planted here specifically to force us to evolve, or if there's some other agenda here. I simply don't know that. But that's basically what I know. I do know that not only them, but other reptilian races that are descended from them. Also, the Draconians, the reptilian races, are master geneticists. And I'm told that most of the dinosaurs and many other life forms that were on Earth were brought here then. Also on Mars. Apparently Mars was very much like the Earth at one time. And they came to Mars first. That's literally where our human form was created, by the way. Was on Mars. That's where the primate and the human genes were brought together. Was on Mars. And then we were brought here to work as slaves in the mines. Okay? So we're still working for a paycheck. And they enjoy human flesh, and they enjoy children mostly for two reasons. One, they don't have the pollutants, the caffeine, the nicotine, and things of that, all the processed foods that the adults have. And two, when they're put into a state of fear, their energy field and their adrenaline just explodes, and they get a rush from it. Be dedicated to family and be dedicated to each other, folks. That's the only way we're going to get through a lot of this. Next question.
You talked about eating of children or people, and while I was there, you said it was because of the purity of the passion, the emotion brought up the fear, the high fear, and the high adrenal activity was attractive to them. I understand that, but an advanced technology, it would seem to me, would be able to clone their food or clone. We can make adrenaline supplements or different things.
Okay. Now, I want you to look at this idea. When is anything that's a clone as good as the original? Okay. What you fail to realize is, yeah, they can create clones, and they have human clones, but you cannot put soul in it. Okay? You may grow an organic processor in the brain to get them to act and do everything, but there's no soul attached to it. And as long as there's no soul, you don't have true emotion. True emotion? Well, your adrenaline rush. Okay, if I were to go over and do something to you and scare the hell out of you, okay, you would have a very serious emotional rush. Okay? They're addicted to the peaking of that emotional rush. It's like a narcotic to them because they don't have it. That's why they're so interested in us. They're numb. They're numb. Their physicalities are numb. They're all in their head. They're in self-imposed loneliness. Okay? Yes? I'm sorry?
Do they terrify the children?
Yes, ma'am, they do. The question was, do they terrify the children? And I said yes. Yes, ma'am.
Alex, what is it precisely about the human mind that makes us so worthy to be feared and suppressed? What is it that's very unique to our 22-strand genetic makeup? And also, what is our free will compared with their free will? It seems to imply that, do they have free will in the same way that we do?
Okay, is that it?
That's that question. The second thing is you haven't finished the earth changes yet.
Thank you for busting me. I appreciate it. Okay. as far as our mind, I don't really know that it's so much the mind as it is our extremes of emotions, our essence. They've always stressed not so much what's in the mind, even though that's important to be able to control the creative force of emotions. It's more so the emotions. Because we are able to contain all of that inside physical form, that's what they're most attracted to. Because they want that, because the races have lost, I've said this before, some of their passion, and they are becoming more and more dependent on technology. And here we are steeping ourselves deeper and deeper into physicality, when in fact we have the ability to just leave all this behind. So we are not correctly using our power as a race. In fact, we're wasting it. And they're more attracted to that. And I'll do the earth changes after we've gone through a lot more questions. Okay? Next. Thank you for your patience.
We're not supposed to put many questions. I have more, but
just one.
I pick up just the most important for me. It's about implants, and if you know about specifically about the neutral implant by Cryon.
About what?
Cryon, the neutral implant. Do you know something?
I know absolutely nothing about that.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but I do know a little bit about implants, and getting back, this will work together. As far as our free will compared to other races' free will, they're really one and the same. It's just that we don't realize the power of our free will. We don't totally realize the sovereignty that our free will gives us. And that is why they are manipulating us through belief systems to try to get us to relinquish our free will by using our free will to say, okay, yes, you can come down and control us. Because then it's a choice. Okay? As far as the implants, what I do know is that there are a lot of races that have been abducting people and putting implants in them, and it is a sign or a seal of ownership. Okay? They feel that they own you. Now, the Greys have done this a lot because the United States government gave them permission to do it. You know, we were sold out, basically. That's what I know. I do know that many of the implants can be neutralized using a very strong ultraviolet light. Anybody else? Gosh, you guys are getting crowded over there.
I'm sure I speak for all of us. She mentioned earlier that this was a treat for you. It's very much a treat for us as well.
Thank you.
Okay, I have two questions. They're relatively unrelated. The first one, if you get an opportunity later on and have time, I would be very interested in hearing, but the second one is what I would like to ask you about. The first one is, you mentioned that the Andromedans know Ramtha as the commander. Are there any other beings that they have mentioned, and does this in any way tie in with why other races, along with the Andromedans, regard us as special? That's if you get an opportunity later on. The second question that I want to ask you is, the Andromedans have mentioned several changes about to occur, what Jay-Z referred to. Sovereignty is a major concern for many of us. Many of these changes are going to represent financial opportunities as they unfold. I know that dates and specific levels or prices are mutable and subject to change, but have they given you any signposts or preliminary events to watch out for that indicate that change is imminent or about to happen? Thank you.
The earthquakes are changes, are signs. The volcanoes are signs. When you start to see large groups of people resigning from world government that will be your biggest sign that shit's about to hit the fan. Okay? Many of our world leaders have been promised underground facilities, and some even on the moon. And folks, there are bases on the moon that were built by the United States, Russians, and the British, using British money. And I would suggest to you very, very strongly, you keep an eye on Charles, Prince Charles. Okay? Just watch. No, Just watch. Then don't. Next question, please. Next question, please.
When you spoke about the transition between going from fourth density to fifth density, how are we going to know that we made that transition?
Okay, that's an easy question. Okay, we live in a color spectrum of 72 frequencies, or 72 colors. When you get to fifth density, there are 223 different frequencies and colors. You will see colors you have never ever seen before, and it'll be just like that. And you know you will be there. Okay? Yes, sir. I mean, when McDonald's has purple arches, then you'll know.
Do the Andromedans have a military? And do they have a financial system, anything like ours?
Okay, great question. No, they have no financial system. Everything that they create technologically is used for the advancement of their race. It is for educational purposes only, but it can be used in defense. No, they do not have an army or a military per se. They are scientists. What they do is they send their children to school from anywhere from 150 to 200 years. This is our time. Well, you know, they live 1,000 years, 1,500, 2,000 years. And what they do is they teach their students all of the arts and sciences. They are literally PhDs or masters in everything. Then at that point, they have the choice as to what it is they want to do. And they can change their minds in a heartbeat and do something else. So they are given all the tools. Everything is for education. Nothing is for distraction. Okay, they would never conceive of creating television as a distraction. Never. Okay, everything is to help them evolve. And their science and their technology can be used in defensive purposes. Mostly the holographic stuff. Yes, sir.
I'm wondering if you could elaborate on the Dracos and Hale-Bopp a little bit.
What I have shared is really all that I know. I just know that life is going to be very different. It is, they say it's a comet. It's not a comet. I can tell you this, that it has split into two pieces, and both pieces are rotating, okay, around an invisible axis. They're rotating like this as it's moving. And something that a friend told me that she heard on Art Bell, and I have not confirmed this, okay, so this is still rumor, but apparently an astronomer was on Art Bell, and he called and said that they have seen a large craft that is now flying alongside Hale-Bopp that's larger than the Earth. Okay, so if it doesn't change course, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. All the denial's going to be gone, you know. Yes.
I understand the Andromedans have a version of the story of Enki and Enlil, and I'm wondering if you could tell us anything about that.
Oh, that's a long question. Long answer. Actually, my understanding is that the two brothers have really warred with each other over a lot of other issues. We just happen to be one of them. I do know that Enki, what they've told me is that Enki was betrayed and killed, and that his body is literally buried in the face that's on Mars. Now, whether he's reincarnated or not, again, I don't know. But that's That's all I know. Basically, what we have to deal with now is Enlil, but fortunately, you know, truth is starting to come out about all that, and people are waking up and, you know, realizing and seeing the contradictions in the Old Testament and even some of the contradictions in the New Testament, and they're starting to question, which is a very, very good sign. You know, Phaseus once said to me, it is not so important what you believe, but as to why you believe it. And whatever your belief is, make sure that it is worth the depth of your commitment to it. And, you know, I think what we've done as a race is we've accepted a lot of things just on face value without truly investigating it or trying to feel it inside of us. And it's gotten us into a lot of trouble. For example, the Inquisition. You know, the Inquisition was really an attack against women. That's really what it was about the sacredness, the Wicca of women, and the science that they held, the spirituality that they held. That's really what it was about. A lot of men got killed because they were supportive of the goddess worship. And that was a huge travesty on the human race. Just one of many. Next question.
This scenario that you're laying out before us exists on this reality, on this parallel reality, or this timeline. What if the Andromedans say about parallel realities where this scenario doesn't happen?
He's not going to like my answer. They haven't said anything. I know that there are parallel realities, and I know that Earth, that several parallel realities of Earth are already in existence in the higher octaves above us. I know that in one of the realities, the New World Order is already established and exists. And, you know, the Nazi flag flies over the whole world. I want you to know that as third density begins to implode, that all of those realities will be moving and merging into the one. Okay? Because the reality of which those two were created is the one we're on. And all the other ones will be returning to source. Now, they've said that the New World Order will come into reality here, but for a short time. As we keep moving, as long as we stick together, as long as we help one another, as long as we have mutual respect for each other, we will not slow down our process as we move up, you know, into the higher dimension, or just to a higher consciousness of world unity, of our free will, not being forced at the point of a gun to do it, or not having to relinquish your rights. You know, I mean, here in the United States, you know, a lot of people are worried about the Russians, they're worried about the Hong Kong police and the New World Order. Let me tell you something, folks. You're losing your country in the courtroom every day. It's in the courtroom with corrupt judges and institutionalized corruption. And I'll tell you what, if you allow, this is my own little political statement, if you allow the Congress and the President to take away the Second Amendment, you will lose all your other rights. I don't believe in toting a gun, carrying a gun, and killing anybody. All right? But the Founding Fathers knew about corruption, and they knew about tyranny. And the reason the Second Amendment is there is to protect all the other rights. And until we consciously make the shift and change everybody else's perspective, I'm afraid, from my perspective, it's a necessary evil. But that's my perspective, okay? You know, I mean, America, you have done so much in such a short amount of time. But you have to understand that when you're a draconian or Orion belief system, there is no such thing as free will, as self-rule in their control. Now, the reason we've been able to get away with it for so long is because, you know, when you look at where we are to the center of the galaxy, we're in the boonies. You know, we're way out here. And they're just now starting to come around, and they realize that the magnetics of the planet, the consciousness of the planet, is starting to change. So they, you know, this is what has attracted a lot of the races to us now. It was also the blasting of nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons not only affect third density, but they affect fourth and fifth. It sends a shock wave through it. Okay? And we were totally irresponsible. We didn't know. We didn't know what we were doing. You know, and that's why a lot of the races started to show up. I mean, they'd been here sooner, but that's when they really started to come in mass. Like, what the hell's going on down there? You know. Next question. Again, I've only got pieces of the puzzle.
I've had a contact a number of years ago, and I know a lot of other people here have, and it was both very powerful and loving, and yet there was also some fear with that. Many of us are now thinking about how can we make contact that feels safe, evolving, loving. Mm-hmm. Can you speak to that?
I'm asked this a lot, and all I can suggest to you is this. You can literally be and create anything you want. If you want contact, then what I would suggest you do, and this is really the only suggestion I have, is you create the space for it. Now, if you're very comfortable going into the woods, going on a walk and sitting on a rock someplace where you're totally isolated and you're there and you call them down and that works for you, that's fine. Okay, if you want them to come visit you at your home and you set up a specific time and you make tea and you wait for them to come, that's another thing you can do. It's entirely up to you. Okay, but create the space. Show the intent to do it and be in integrity with it. In other words, for that hour or 2 hours that you decide to create the space, do it all the time. Make it always 2 hours. Make it always 2.5 hours. Do it once every 2 weeks. Whatever you want. Whatever ritual you want to make it in order to create the space, then that's what you do. Okay? That's the only suggestion I have for you, wherever you went. Okay, next, please.
On your tapes, you talk about how if we have 10% consensus on the planet, it'll be enough to move us through the transition. And you also give an exercise that they taught you about seeing yourself inside out.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in more information about both of those. And in this talk tonight, you've spoken about transfers, and I'm not sure what those are. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Transfers?
When you first started speaking,
okay, well, let's go to your first question.
oh, okay, yeah.
I was given an exercise. You guys probably all know this stuff already, you know, but something that I was given specifically, which I do every day. And, you know, they never give me answers about myself. And it really pisses me off sometimes. Because, you know, we're looking for shortcuts. I mean, let's face it, we're Earth humans. Okay? Anyway, the exercise was to get very, very quiet, get myself into a very humbled space. Sincere space is the word they use a lot. And it was literally to grab the balls of my feet and turn myself inside out so that everything that's on the outside is now in and everything on the inside is now out. And when you see yourself upside down, you see yourself strung out like this, very carefully detach yourself and look at who you are. Don't get scared. Just work with it. Okay? I mean, that's really the only exercise they've given me. I've had to develop my own things, and you know, I'm still working with those. You know, next question.
I'm fascinated. First of all, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Living your life where you're living it. I'm fascinated with the language of geometry that I'm learning comes from deeper levels, and I'm wondering if you have, or there are exact renditions of those symbols that could contain, for example, a pi ratio or a pi, or like I know the circles could be exact and then they have a meaning. If they're a little off, they don't. Do you know if there are exact symbols that could have like the pi ratio in them, or you just drew them like?
Okay, that's a great question. I tell you what, I've never asked that question because it's always in my head. But what I will do is I will ask the specific dimensions and what tones and frequencies, and I will give them to Val Valerian so that he can put them on the web or get it to you guys. Okay? I will ask that.
You've referred to the Andromeda educational system and their feeling about raising the children and putting the energy toward education. And you've made a few comments about weapons in general, and I understand the First Amendment issue is a little different. We're heading into dangerous times, and there's a lot of controversy among different people in the school here about weapons and what should be done. The Andromeda feeling about mutual respect for everyone. Seems like a lot of the women that I know don't want to have anything to do with them no matter what, and a lot of the men I know are totally obsessed with them. What's the Andromeda's feeling of our weapons and the part that they would play in the changes that are going to be happening?
Okay, it's a very good question. Oh, not an easy one. They have said that we, and I said this earlier, that we destroy ourselves in ignorance. And I understand that weapons are not a good idea. I believe that. I really do. However, let's look at the reality that we're in. Okay? There have been many really holy spiritual men that have been murdered. Okay? They literally went to death holding unconditional love. And that's great. Okay? However, and this is my perspective, if somebody is coming in my front door to harm my family, I'm taking them out. And I'll make no bones about it. But they would have to be coming after my family. The Andromedans, they're not happy with our society, with any of it. But they realize we cannot defend ourselves. That's why there and other groups are contemplating intervention, because we can't defend ourselves. And we do have a serious threat. And you can hold the space of love. You know, I truly believe you can hold the space of love, but at the same time, you can hold the space of sovereignty and defiance of tyranny. I mean, what good is total unconditional love when it's being totally suppressed?
If we take that attitude, then don't we then create a situation where we have to come back and do it from the other side? Don't we just get right back involved in the whole cause and effect?
Well, it could be very possible. It could very well be possible. I really don't have an answer for that. You know, like I said, I've got my stuff and I'm working it out.
The symbols that you drew on the board, are they considered a universal language, or are they part of the Andromedan culture? And also, are the Andromedans taught to focus on those symbols in order to create reality like we are here in the school?
Good question. I do not know if they're universal. Again, I've only met 2 other races with the Andromedans. I did not speak with them, but I saw them and then was told later who they were. And one was a group from Cygnus Alpha, a human race from Cygnus Alpha, and a very different looking being from Cassiopeia. I did not know the communications that were going on, but as far as the symbols, it's their language, and it's just one of a gazillion that they use. But I don't know that it's universal. I just don't know if all the other races know it. I mean, it could very well be that when the council gets together, they have interpreters who interpret the holographs, just like our UN does. I don't really know. So I'm sorry my information on that is so limited. Yes?
Please tell us a story about a time that you have observed on how the Andromedans treat their children.
Okay. Can I ask you a question? Sure. Who are those faces?
Me.
Okay. They treat their children like adults. I understand that they birth in water. The gestation period is 8 months. The children come out and they have full cognizant memory of who they were the life before. So there is a continuous evolution, life after life after life. Now, during the period between incarnations, and I don't know if this happens for all the beings on fifth density or not, the oldest and the wisest, who have the most experience, teach the youngest. So it's not where they withhold anything. In fact, the children, and this is the law of consistency, the children know everything their parents know and even more. And there's no attitude with the parents. This is something they want because their pride is in their race. And I wish we had the same philosophy. God, we dumb them down with cartoons and stuff like that. Okay, the question was, when I was with them for 3 months, did I observe something with them in the park? They sit in circles. Again, they're telepathic. So they would just be in circles, and you would see them nodding and smiling and laughing, but there's no sound. So I can't tell you what they were saying. It would be like if you went to a convention of deaf mutes, and it's just sign language. You have no clue what's going on. But they're talking about incredible things, I'm sure. Things that are probably way over my head, and most things are, actually. So, but they treat them like adults. And again, they teach them everything from a very young age. I mean, they go to school for 150 years. God, you got to pick up some stuff after that. And there's no home ec and stuff like that. I mean, it's like real educational stuff. No car mechanics 102 or anything like that. Yes, sir.
My question has to do with the seeding of this planet by the Andromedans originally. You mentioned 62,000 years ago in a time period of only 65 years, but I'm specifically interested, do you know of any symbols or any information about reawakening latent genetics for people who are on this planet, and is there any relationship of Lemuria to that 62,000 year ago time period?
Lemuria was in existence at that point. Atlantis was just beginning to be colonized. Now, folks, let me set you straight on something, or what the Andromedan perspective is. Atlantis was an extraterrestrial colony. Okay? I know that there's a lot of channeled stuff and other stuff that's done in remote viewing, and I don't know if it's all true or if it's not true, but the Andromedan perspective is that Atlantis was an extraterrestrial colony specifically. Lemuria was also. However, there were some of us Terrans there. okay? And we were servants, more or less, okay? Some of the stronger genetic of our race were used as a priesthood to basically keep in line the other humans. I mean, you know, if you go back and you look at history through Sumeria, Egypt, even today, you know, today the new priesthood is the world bankers. You know, they have total control of your life on a monetary, physical level. You know, it's hard to do anything on this planet without money. And they're the new priesthood. As far as latent DNA and latent memories, I have been told, and I for some reason, I don't know why, I can't find my specific dates, but there will be a point where as the frequency increases, that we will start to remember things. Children today are already remembering things. There are children today who can just speak all these different languages, and that are not Earth languages. Some of them are extinct languages from Earth that some of these children just know, and it's the latent memory in the DNA that is coming out. And more of this will be occurring. I know that there are children today. I know of a woman who's contacted me who lives in Tennessee. She has a child who came to her one day and says, you know, Mom, if I were to reverse engineer a nuclear bomb and explode it, it would draw all the radiation out of here. You know, this kid's 6 years old. And, you know, there are children today over in Egypt that are walking out into the desert and showing archaeologists, well, I remember there was something there, a library. And sure enough, they're digging and they're finding the foundations of things. You know, and our government probably does know because of its satellite technology, but there's no way a 10, 11, 12-year-old kid should know that stuff because it's all being suppressed. So the, you know, the world powers have a real serious problem. People are waking up, and it's great. We have to. We've been, you know, our heritage has been denied us. We've been robbed of it. And don't let it go. Don't let it go. We need to know who we are. Thanks. That was a good question. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for coming.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Do you have any information that you can give us that would shed light on the mystery of gravity on this plane? And is it indigenous to this planet, or is it a mutation?
Say that again. Is there what?
Is it indigenous to here, to the solar system?
Gravity?
Yes, to Earth, or is it a mutation? And would it disappear when the frequencies begin to raise?
Okay. The Andromedan perspective regarding gravity is that it is created by radiation from the sun and our planet. We're told that it's the rotation of the planet on its axis. Their perspective is that it has to do with radiation from the sun. And they say that any physical body that is 29 miles or larger has a gravitational field. They have gravity on the Andromedan craft, and I would assume that's for a reason, so that they could get more done, so they're not just floating all over the place. I don't believe it's a mutation. There's gravity on all the fields because there's a physicality. So there has to be some form. Whether or not it's going to totally disappear, I think as we move through 3, 4, and into 5th, I think we will deal with a totally different type of gravity as we know it. It'll probably be lighter, but then again, we will have different physical form as well. But again, they say that it comes from the sun. It's the radiation from the sun that creates gravity on our world. You're welcome. Yes, ma'am. Okay.
I have 2 questions. One quickly. They display mutual respect and love, but I'd like to know how they do that. And the second question, in our society, all of our myths and legends seem to be blueprints for our lives. And I'd like to know what kinds of myths and legends, if they have them, that they have. I know you probably don't have time to tell us one tonight. If you would, I'd love it. But, you know, if you could get that information for Val, I'd love to have that.
Okay, they don't call them myths. They call it history. Okay? And I will give those to Val. All right? And you're right, there's a lot, but it's history. We have taken truth and shrouded it as myth because we're hiding an agenda. How do they show mutual respect? They just honor every aspect of their life and everybody else's life. Because they're so evolved, there's no such thing as crime there. There's no laser shootings on a mothership. There's no, they need for nothing. They absolutely need for nothing. Anything that they need is given to them for evolvement. And they all work towards that. They wouldn't think about leaving somebody behind. I'll give you a good example of that too. There was a ship, an extraterrestrial craft that was apparently shut down in 1985. I believe it was 1985. And it was a human being from Tau Ceti who literally got too close, and he was shot down. I understand that our military was able to take him, took him underground somewhere in Arizona, put him on a car, a train, took him underground to North Dakota, where they started doing some really horrific things. Morane told me that a Tau Ceti fleet wanted to come in and invade our planet, particularly North Dakota, to get this guy back. Okay? And it was literally the Andromedans and the Pleiadians, a benevolent group of Pleiadians, that stepped in and said, whoa, no, not yet. It's not the time. That's mutual respect. It's not leaving POWs in Vietnam because you promised the government $3 billion. It's not leaving men in North Korea because you lied, because you're dealing drugs. You don't want everybody else to know. That's not mutual respect. They would never, ever think to do something like that. And those are things, those are characteristics we need to look at. Because there are many in this room that probably know about that. I mean, there are right now, as we are standing here right today, there are 117 men still left in SPOWs, but they're not in Vietnam. Okay, they're being held in northern Laos. There are also 3 men that are still alive from the Korean War, still being held in North Korea. And our government knows, and they know. A lot of the POWs were used for scientific experiments. We did it to some of their guys, using drugs, LSD, we blew their minds. And they've done some pretty horrific things to our people. These are all real character issues, and it's one thing to hear about it in the news or to listen to Joyce Riley talk about the Gulf War syndrome and how our guys have been betrayed. It's one thing to sit in your living room and say, oh my God, that's terrible. But what you don't understand is that we are very carefully being watched by some incredible races, both good and bad. And they are watching us and our characteristics, what we will do, what we will not do. They are measuring our honor and intent. Okay? It's not just about us anymore. It's about everything. And I know you're probably being taught that. So when you hear stuff like this, please don't go into your little box. Okay? Those people had families. They had children just like you do now. And it was all taken away because they were betrayed. And betrayal is a major issue that we're all going to have to deal with when the truth finally does come screaming out. Okay? We have been betrayed. And we're going to have to come together and find a way to totally forgive that so that we can move on. But in forgiving it, it's important not to allow it to happen again, to be more diligent, to be more vigilant. Um, I'm so tired. I don't even have my notes. Okay, it's on the internet. All right, the Earth changes, it's on the internet. Most of you already know. Okay, you're looking for dates, specific dates, what time, so on and so forth. That's not important. It is definitely coming, but it's all a probability as to when. All right? But there are more people negatively polarized on the planet that it's almost a sure thing that it's going to happen at this point. The internet is a leading edge research group. I'm sorry? Yeah, he's free to do whatever he wants. None of this has a copyright. None of the tapes, the newsletters, nothing. You know, it's not mine. I don't own it. I'm just here to deliver it. So you can do whatever you want with it. Just don't change the intent, okay? Just don't change the intent.
Alex, we have some of your newsletters that you sent, and I'm going to have them in the bookstore for people. There's not enough for everybody, but there's quite a few for those of you who are interested. We'll also post the address for that newsletter for everybody, so if they want to get those kinds of specific dates, they'll be available to them.
Yeah, that's a good idea. It is behind the one we see. Here, I'll show you what I mean. Okay, this is the sun. This is Earth and her moon. The second one is smaller, it is behind it. If you're standing on Mars, you see it. Okay? You see it. As it turns, now the reason it was done, the reason our planet was moved is because the surface could not handle the radiation of two suns after the last war that was here. So they had to do something about moving it. Now, when I asked, well, who moved this? The response I got from RNA, and this is the only answer I got, was that this is something the Pleiadians had to answer. So I don't know if there's an agreement for them to bring this information out, or if they were responsible for it. I don't know. Okay? But apparently there is some evidence coming to light that they clearly suspect that there are two. Okay? Let's see, hold on. I want to end this with, I want to read something, and I want to thank the gentleman in the back for bringing this up. I have a very deep respect for the Native Americans. And I just think that they're great. They have really tried to hold on to their integrity through it all. They themselves, which I witnessed at the Star Visions Conference, still have major prejudices with the white race. And whether they're justified or not, what happens to us happens to them. So we all need to drop it, and we need to come to the table. We need to bring all the wisdom to the table so that we can figure out together how we're going to deal with the situations that are coming. There are still some Native Americans that choose to withhold information regarding the star nations, the star races. That's okay, that's fine. What I can tell you is that there will be others coming up behind them and making sure that humanity gets the information. Because we have to know the truth. It's the only way we can make the right decisions. You cannot make the correct decision with only half the truth. It's still the wrong decision. Or it could still backfire because we don't know all the pieces of the puzzle. You know? And from what little I do know, it appears that all of you are truly blessed to be able to come to a school like this and get the information that you need so that you can go out and teach others. And folks, I want to stress this again. It is imperative that you take the knowledge that you have, that you've been given, and you teach others. We are running out of time, all right? We can really turn this around, but we have to do it right away, and you have to be committed to it. I mean, I can't stress this enough. I mean, time is so short as we know it. And, I don't think it's fair that 2/3 of the planet are not going to make it because they have not been told the truth. It just isn't fair. But, I didn't make up this game, or maybe I did, part of it. But if I did, then I'm an idiot, because it isn't working. Okay, it isn't fair. There are a lot of good people on the planet who are real simple people. And, you know, they're just not being told the truth. Now, they may not want to believe it, but that's okay. At least you put it out there, and they made a choice. But unless it's put out there, they won't know that there's a choice. Okay, and that's all you can do. You're not really responsible for anybody else but yourself. Okay, I'm going to read this. O Great Spirit, whose breath gives life to all the world, hear me. I am small and weak. I need your strength and your wisdom. Let me walk in beauty and make my eyes ever behold the red and purple sunset. Make my hands respect the things that you have made and taught my people. Make me wise so that I might understand the things you have taught my people. Let me learn the lessons you have hidden in every leaf and every rock. I see strength not to be greater than my brother, but to fight my greatest enemy, myself. So when life fades as the fading sunset, and my spirit may come, and as life fades as the fading sunset, please let my spirit come to you without shame. Washtay. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.